real talk, these two are probably the most hyped cameras of the year, the DJI Pocket 4P and the Insta360 Luna Ultra. But don't let their size fool you, these are tiny cinematic beasts. We have 10-bit log, dual lenses, and footage that stays perfectly stabilized no matter the shot. But with the iPhone 17 Pro Max sitting in everybody's pockets, are these cameras actually worth buying? I mean, this phone shoots in log 2 and its stabilization is incredible even without a gimbal. I'm Olive, and after a week testing all three side by side, one single shot exposed a pretty ugly truth. Let's cut to the chase and start with the most important feature of these cameras: stabilization. By the way, this video is sponsored by DJI, but I'm gonna give you the unfiltered truth, even if DJI doesn't love hearing it. For our very first test, we have a vlogging style clip using the main lenses on all three devices. Because let's be real, this is how you'll be shooting most of the time. As you can see, both the DJI and Insta360 keep the image rock solid, whereas the iPhone has a slight bit of walking bounce. Though that's pretty much beginner level, so let's go from 0 to hero with some running shots. This is where the iPhone hits its limit. The lens bounces all over its housing and the footage looks pretty unusable. Meanwhile, both the Pocket 4P and the Luna Ultra keep things insanely smooth. There's honestly no competition. Now, it is true that the iPhone has action mode, and we'll test that out in just a second. But first, you have to check out how the shiny new telephoto lenses perform, because both the DJI and Insta360 now feature a second 3x optical zoom lens. The iPhone, as you know, rocks a 4x optical zoom lens. These lenses actually hold up surprisingly well during walking shots, though once again, the iPhone struggles the most, even though this is just a walk in the park, literally. But once we step up the pace, things get messy real fast. Just look at how the iPhone completely fails to keep up, while I stay perfectly framed on both the DJI and the Insta360. On top of that, you also have a much wider frame to show your surroundings. But I promise to show you how action mode can try and save the iPhone's footage. And while the stabilization is vastly improved, you have to sacrifice both resolution and field of view. Also, the crop is so heavy that you have to stand significantly further back just to replicate what the DJI and Insta360 do naturally. Another huge feature the iPhone completely lacks is intelligent subject tracking. DJI's Active Track 8.0 and Insta360's Deep Track 5.0 lock onto you effortlessly, while the iPhone gets an instant KO here. Both gimbals perform really great, even when I briefly hide behind this tree. Though the DJI's tracking feels smoother, maintaining continuous framing and panning, while the Insta360 has hard stops when I switch directions. Enabling subject tracking on either device is as easy as double tapping the screen or pressing the joystick. Both gimbals can also auto-track multiple people at once, keeping everyone centered no matter where you move. This is a game changer for interviews or even casual vlogging with friends on vacation. On the DJI, multi-person tracking kicks in automatically when you select the mode, whereas on the Insta360, you have to manually drag and select your whole party. When it comes to product shots, you can switch to object tracking. Here's a sample of how both devices perform using their main lenses, and the results are virtually identical. You can also use the telephoto zoom lenses with object tracking for even more professional looking shots. And the best part is that it still works seamlessly even if you push it all the way out to 12x zoom. Now let's bring the iPhone back, because next up we're testing the microphones, another massive piece of the vlogging puzzle. And spoiler alert, one of these completely destroys the other two. So here we have the audio coming straight from the DJI. What do you guys think? How do I sound? Moving on to the Insta360, does it sound better than the DJI? What do we think? And finally, we've got the iPhone 17 Pro Max. Better than the rest? A pretty cool feature about the Insta360 is that you actually get this detachable remote. And once you detach it, you can still frame yourself, you can start and stop recording, but you can also use it as a microphone, and I think that is such a cool feature. The DJI also has a remote where you can frame yourself, start and stop recording, but you can't use it as a microphone. And the iPhone, well, it doesn't have any of those things. But of course, you can connect either of these cameras to an external microphone, and whether that microphone comes with the camera or not will depend on which bundle you go for. So this is what the audio sounds like on the DJI. Then here we have the Insta360. This is what the audio sounds like with the external microphone. microphone that comes with the bundle. And what's really nice is that with the DJI Mic Mini Mobile, you can connect it to your iPhone. So that's what I'm using right now, and this is what the audio sounds like. So yeah, the Insta360 takes a massive win here, thanks to that multi-function remote. But if you're ultra picky about your sound, an external mic is still the way to go. Just keep in mind that with the iPhone, you'll plug a receiver on the bottom port. Alright, by now, you've gotten a solid taste of what the video looks like across all these three. But let's analyze pixel by pixel because two of these cameras are definitely not capturing what your eyes actually see. Both the DJI and Insta360 feature 1-inch type sensors, whereas the one inside the iPhone is slightly smaller. DJI also boasts a brand new low-fix sensor with 17 stops of dynamic range. As for the telephotos, we get 3x zoom lenses on the gimbals and 4x optical zoom on the iPhone. Here, DJI takes the win with both a larger sensor and a wider aperture. Now let's kick things off with some 4K footage shot on the primary lenses. You probably caught a glimpse of this earlier, but the DJI leans into a slightly warmer color profile with deeper shadows, adding a bit more cinematic contrast to the shot. The Insta360 tends to be cooler in tone and have lifted shadows. You can also tell the highlights are pushed brighter, which can lead to occasional clipping in harsh light. The iPhone definitely looks the most post-processed of the three. It lifts every single shadow while killing bright highlights, leaving you with rather flat footage. When you see them side by side, the gap between the gimbals and the iPhone becomes undeniable, especially since Apple's processing hates dark shadows and it also crops in much deeper compared to the others. And here are the stars of the show once again. This 3x zoom lens on the DJI delivers beautiful color tones alongside a really sweet natural bokeh, something portrait mode on an iPhone simply can't match. Next up is the Insta360, which also delivers great background blur and stabilization, though you will notice the color temperature tends to be cooler and the foliage looks a bit bright. Then we have the iPhone, which does give you some natural separation from the background, but it introduces noticeable motion blur when panning, which affects overall detail. Once you look at all three side-by-side footage, you'll also notice that even though both the DJI and Insta360 use 3x zoom lenses, the Insta360 has a wider field of view, while the DJI definitely gives you much more creamier background blur. Once the sun sets, you have low light mode on the DJI and pure video on the Insta360 to capture more out of the scene. In practice though, the DJI can blow out highlights pretty easily, and you also lose the ability to shoot vertical video in this mode. The Insta360 produces a dimmer shot, but thanks to that lower exposure, highlights don't clip like they do on the DJI. Plus it feels much more like a true nighttime shot if you ask me. But the best shot, at least for me, goes to the iPhone, which shows the widest dynamic range here. The trade-off though is a rather noticeable loss of fine detail. Now that was using the main lenses. On the telephotos, it's a similar story for the DJI. In an effort to lift shadows, the highlights on the lamp end up blown out, and there's a fair bit of noise across the frame. Once again, the Insta360 delivers a darker image, but it holds onto that low light vibe much better. It actually looks pretty cinematic, and you also get more detail on the wall. The iPhone's telephoto, on the other hand, looks absolutely terrible. I mean, I really don't think anyone would choose this over what the DJI or Insta360 can do. Of course, having two dedicated lenses on these new cameras allows you to get much closer to your subject. Both gimbals reach a maximum of 12x digital zoom, and lens switching is completely seamless on both, though zooming itself is way slower on the Insta360. But the iPhone holds a massive lead here, letting you zoom all the way from its ultra-wide lens up to 40x digital zoom on the telephoto. Detail levels at maximum zoom on the DJI could definitely use some tuning. As of right now, the Insta360 holds onto crispness a bit better at 12x zoom. However, the iPhone is noticeably sharper at that same level, and its ability to stretch all the way to 40x zoom puts it comfortably on top. In case you want to get super creative, all three devices can film slow motion at 4K 120fps. The DJI looks great, but the Insta360 holds onto a tiny bit more detail. The iPhone, however, takes last position here with a rather blurry and flat video. However, that is where the Insta360 and the iPhone completely tap out. The DJI can push all the way up to 240 frames per second while still maintaining full 4K resolution. And for me, that is a bigger win. On top of that, you can drop the shutter speed all the way down to 1/4 in 4K 60fps to create stylized motion blur like this, whereas the Insta360 bottoms out at 1/60, and the iPhone doesn't even offer a native Pro mode to control it. Now let's get technical for a second, because if you like to tweak your footage in post-production, you can shoot in log on any of these three devices. But here's another major win for the DJI. It supports D-Log 2. D-Log 2 gives you a broader range of data to work with, letting you pull back highlights, recover deep shadows, and grade colors exactly to your liking. You do have to keep in mind though that D-Log 2 is only supported on the main lens. If you want to shoot in log with the telephoto lens, you'll have to drop back down to standard D-Log. This is probably the feature that you'll use the least, but you can also take high-resolution photos with these gimbals. Both the DJI and Insta360 snap 37 megapixel shots, whereas the iPhone steps it up to 48 megapixels. Unsurprisingly, photo mode is definitely not where these gimbals shine. The iPhone pretty much outperforms both in every single shot, delivering finer detail levels and much more vibrant colors. The weakest of the group by far was the Insta360, producing washed out tones in every single shot. Oh, and just as an extra bonus, all three devices are capable of capturing live photos. So there you have it. That wraps up image quality. But once we move past what these lenses can output, the actual real-world user experience puts one of these three at a massive disadvantage. When it comes to weight, all three sit at almost the exact same level, so there's no major difference here. The obvious distinction comes down to form factor. Both the DJI and Insta360 are built from the ground up for ergonomics, whereas the iPhone is just a glass slab. These gimbals offer 2-inch rotating touchscreens alongside physical controls. I generally prefer the layout on the DJI because the buttons aren't positioned quite as low, making them easier to reach. I also prefer the feedback of its joystick, which allows for much smoother and precise zoom. As for the iPhone, while you can zoom using the camera control button, getting a smooth, continuous zoom shot is practically impossible. As you saw earlier, the Insta360's entire front panel detaches to function as both a remote and a microphone, which is huge. But unfortunately, the signal gets weak at around 30 meters and drops completely at 40 meters. The remote DJI offers has a tested range of around 50 meters. Just be aware this handy remote is only included if you opt for the creator or the vlog combos. One huge win for DJI though is its 103 gigabytes of built-in storage compared to just 47 gigabytes on the Insta360. This is a huge lifesaver if you accidentally leave your memory card plugged into your computer, a nightmare that we've all experienced. You do get a base storage of 256 gigabytes on the iPhone, but that space has to be shared with every single one of your apps, system data, and personal files. On top of that, you have to buy every single iPhone accessory separately, whereas both DJI and Insta360 offer first-party bundles. If you do opt for one of these bundles, both brands throw in attachable grips and microphones, plus a tripod, remote, and fill light in the case of DJI's vlog combo, or a backup battery and ultra-wide lens module with Insta360's creator bundle. You can also pick up magnetic ND filters for the Pocket 4P, which further enhance its real-world usability. The iPhone doesn't really offer specialized first-party video gear. Everything you find on the market is basically a third-party attachment trying to work around the shape of a phone. But before we wrap things up, you need to see a pretty alarming roadblock we hit with the battery on one of these. Battery size-wise, the DJI and Insta360 play in the exact same ballpark, while the iPhone carries a significantly larger battery. But again, that battery has to power every single feature on the phone, not just the cameras. Both DJI and Insta360 claim up to 3.5 hours of battery life when recording in 1080p. We put that to the test, but using 4K 30 FPS instead, which is honestly a much more realistic real-world format. Results were, however, troublesome. First off, the DJI's display automatically dims after a few minutes, but we did our best to keep it at full brightness for fairness. But that wasn't even the concerning part. The real issue was that after just over an hour, the Insta360 completely shut down due to severe overheating. We tried restarting the recording immediately, but eventually had to give up because the Insta360 simply refused to stay powered on. Meanwhile, the DJI sailed through the test without a single issue. No overheating, no shutdowns, nothing. To make matters worse, the Insta360's battery drained significantly faster, while the DJI was still sitting at 53%. And to rub salt in the wound, it performed even worse during our real-world testing. By the time the Insta360 died, the DJI still had 50% battery left. We literally had to pause our entire shoot, wait for the Insta360 to recharge, and only then resume shooting. shipping, which completely killed our momentum. As for the iPhone, we squeezed out almost 13 hours in our general battery drain test with a mix of everyday apps, so technically, it's the battery champion here. So in the end, what's the verdict? I think the iPhone is by far the most versatile device since it's always in your pocket, but it's by no means the best camera here. You hit its limits very quickly if you're serious about filming. Both the DJI Pocket 4P and the Insta360 Luna Ultra are awesome choices. I personally love the Insta360's detachable remote, but as you saw, the footage leaves a bit to be desired when it comes to the colors. And the total deal breaker for me was the battery life. It's nowhere near what the DJI offers. For me, that's crucial because when I'm out hiking, for example, I can't just stop and recharge on the trail. Now, the DJI isn't perfect either. It definitely has room to grow in areas like telephoto zoom detail, low light performance, and object tracking, but thankfully, those can all be refined through software updates, and I'm pretty confident DJI will prioritize those fixes. But what about you? Which of these 3 cameras would you trust? As always, drop your thoughts in the comments down below. Thanks again to DJI for sponsoring this video, and before you go, don't forget to give us a big thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, and hit subscribe because we're always testing the latest tech to help you make the best choice. We'll see you in our next video, and until then, take care.